I'm not stopping before you because I'm coming with you. And we're doing this together, and that's what we want to do with FTR is use our gear, our message, as similar to really run with other people, to not be about me being better than you or me being able to persevere harder than you, to be about like, yo, I'm with you, like I'm coming with you, I'm not stopping until you get where you need to be either.
Hello and welcome back to the Building Men podcast. Building Men, become the strongest version of yourself mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. We are going into part 2 of our interview with Joel Glotfelty. I want to make sure I'm saying that correct. It doesn't flow off the tongue, Joel. It's not like it doesn't have that like smooth transition off the tongue, but it's a strong. Where's Glotfelty? What is that? What's your nationality?
It's it's a thing that I don't know very well because I was homeschooled and I feel like my mom didn't teach us about that. But I don't know anything about the rest of the world. I'm trying to educate myself. But I believe that we are we have a solid Swiss background. There's some Dutch, which I don't really know what that means, to be honest. I think it's just like a European white guy.
Yeah,
it can be Dutch. And there's a little bit of Irish.
Speaking of European-looking white guys, brother, welcome.
Hey,
welcome to the Building.
Hey, nice segue into that.
Hey, look at that segue.
Classic.
So we're in part 2 of this episode. We went through a long journey on part 1, and I feel like I'm able to really sum up part 1 in maybe like a 10-second clip that I was able to pull from part 1, and this pretty much sums up what we learned more than anything else from part 1 of the episode with Joel.
Like, bro, I read the whole Twilight series.
So
yeah, I was like, wait, what? Did he like clip all these different pieces together?
Yeah, so that's what I got from that part.
That's exactly what from all of that, that's what I took away. I think was the most powerful thing that he said out of all of it.
So fill in the blanks then. I mean, if we missed anything from part 1,
please let us know.
Please let us know.
I mean, I think that was, the most important part of, the man that I've grown into. But I think if we were to stretch and maybe summarize some other things, I think being someone that kind of went from being homeschooled and just having not a lot of resources, not understanding the value of education, where it can take you, all the way to failing out of college twice, withdrawing once because I was failing. To basically just like throwing a Hail Mary and just moving to North Carolina with no prospect of getting into school and just sort of fighting my way in, and then being able to get into medical school, graduate at the top of my class, be able to speak in my graduation. And in order to get into medical school, the AAMC, which kind of runs the whole application process, has a chart that's like it basically gives you a percentage of what your likelihood is to get in based off of people before you, and it calculates your age, your GPA, like your past, your MCAT score, which is the admissions test to get into med school. And I remember looking at mine, and mine was 0.003% was the estimated likelihood of me getting in. So it was interesting.
I'm not a gambling man.
Yeah, I'm not a
by
numbers
nature,
guy, right?
Yeah. Sounds like the deck was stacked against you there.
Yeah. I think the deck is stacked against a lot of people that you don't really know, right? I think we can see a lot of superficial things about someone's past or even their present, right? And without knowing their story, without knowing like who they are, what they fought through, it's easy to bet against them. And I think like a real animal shows up whenever the odds are against them. At 0.003%. And you are willing to bet on yourself still and be like, I don't really care what you think because I already know what I've had to go through to get here. 0.003% is nothing to me at that point.
Right. And is a real animal, in our opinion.
Taylor Lautner. Jacob. How did it work out that way? How did that just happen?
The audience.
Taylor Lautner is his real name, and Jacob Black was his name in the books. I know I read them all. I hope like everyone realized that was not planned at all. Like, I don't know how you set that up so perfectly.
We spent a lot of time this morning making
Yeah,
sure we
this
had a
has
couple
been
audio.
this has been the last like 4.5 hours for us trying to get those together. So we're
And
happy.
the fact that you just said animal, I mean, you just set it up so
It was
perfectly for
perfect.
me.
Yeah.
All right, so you have a 0.003 chance.
2 zeros, man.
2-0. So that is 3 thousandths.
Yeah.
Wow, it's of a percentage point, which is, I mean, you have a better chance of probably getting hit by lightning or something crazy like that than where you ended up. So now, take us back to the story. So rejoin the story where now you're at graduation. There's that dude there that you make eye contact with, the little elf-looking guy. That you're like, listen, he didn't believe in you, but he was someone that helped you believe in yourself. You're like, I'm going to prove this MFer wrong because no one's going to get in the way of me finishing the race. So your graduation day, there's a lot going on that day. So bring us back to that point in your life.
Yeah. I mean, this is probably like the highest moment I've ever had, in my life at that point, where it was just like the culmination of all of that work, all of the grinding, and sort of just like you had kind of aptly put, like gambling on yourself, kind of came to its peak there, right? So I get to graduation day, and not only did I never imagine myself graduating college previously, but now I'm, at the top of my class. I'm winning these like awards that are like very prestigious for where I'm at. I get to speak at my graduation. Like, people are going to sit there and listen to me talk. And like, I have no idea what I'm going to say. And I also was getting married on that day, right? So like on one day, it's like all these massive life achievements are happening. And it's just like, I mean, I remember in that moment, I was like, this is like, I made it now, right? Like, I did all of the things I had to do, and I've already overcome them, and now I just get to enjoy, being where I'm at, getting married, going off to medical school, being at the top of what I was striving for as far as academic achievement. I feel like I had reached the top level. So it was, an incredible moment, an incredible feeling.
And you mentioned to us the last time that I believe it was your uncle. It was a family member that cautioned you about the roller coaster of life. You might feel like you're on top at certain points in life, but you never know what's around the corner. Don't get too high, don't get too low.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, understand that part of it. And so now you're entering medical school. So bring us to that point in life, understanding that you just came off of this high, and you think, all right, it's smooth sailing, but there was a couple things ahead of you that you had no idea was on the horizon.
Yeah. No, I was, so it was like my best friend's dad, right? So it was like almost like family, and he kind of told me that. I was like, you get to these moments where you're on top of the world, and it's like, with my life experience, like we talked about last time, it doesn't always stay that way. So you have to be able to keep, coming back. So that's kind of like, it was just odd timing to hear something like that, because I go into medical school and things are going awesome, man. I start my first month, I came out firing, and it was just like it had been at ECU, where I'm getting tests back and I'm getting hundreds, and like people are starting to really struggle around me. And I was literally like, I've literally trained for this now. Like, this intensity feels like nothing, because I worked full time and I did double degree, and like, so like, this is now like, people are giving me money to be here. I'm getting scholarship money, and obviously still have to pay for stuff, but like, you're now in a position where like, I didn't have to work at all. I just focused on school, and so I was like, this is it, man. Like, I'm here. I'm like, I worked to get here, and so I'm like, I'm coming out. I'm crushing it. And I think, before we get into the rest of the story, one of the things that like I had set myself up for there was that, after going through everything that you go through, you want to come out of that learning something. And I think, what I had done to that point is I hadn't really like learned maybe the lesson I need to learn as far as like what kind of character I want to have as a man. Because now, I met Anthony not long after this, and like I was cocky as hell. Like, I can't even, it's like almost sad to think about. It's like I just thought that at that point I owned the world. So after everything that I went through to come out of that without humility, right? I could say all the right things. I could be like, I want to make this impact, but at the real point, like I was really feeling myself. I was like, I'm an all-star. Like, I did this thing that like people can't do, and like now look at me. And so I hadn't developed the character to be where I was at yet, and that was about to really show up with what was about to come into my life. So the year's going great. I'm a couple months in. I had went to ECU originally to try to play football. I was like really invested in that, and so I was still in great shape even coming into medical school. I was still obsessed with working out, and some of the upperclassmen had kind of picked up on that I was like pretty athletic, and it was something I had a lot of football experience. So they were like, oh, yo, we play like flag football for intramurals with Rutgers, like the undergrads, and then like we'll play against some people that are actually on the Rutgers team. So like you got to come play with us. So I'm like, this is awesome. Like I get to meet like older class members are like pulling me in. Like this is just so cool. I'm gonna get to go ball and like show them what I can do. So we go out there and we're just honestly dominating at that point. We have a lot of like high IQ on the team, some good athletes, and then like I felt like I was just like it was just fun, man. So we were playing. It was great. It was a great way to end a stressful day of studying and working on exams and stuff. So we go through. We're kind of killing it. We get all the way to the championship game, and we're like, it's kind of funny because like you have these like 20-year-old like really athletic people are just getting absolutely murked by like 30-year-old dudes that sit around all day and study. And so we're just kind of loving that. So we get into the end of the game. We're about to win, right? And so we're playing some guys that actually played for the Rutgers. They're like on the Rutgers scout team. That was even their team name. So they're guys that are pretty athletic, right? If you're on a scout team in Division I, you're still a great athlete. You're still usually pretty big body, pretty fast. So we have some guys that are about like similar size to me, similar speed. So we're up by a touchdown, and there's like I think there was like 20 seconds left or something. This is October 23rd of 2016. They drop back. The quarterback drops back, and they have to basically throw Hail Marys. They have to go the whole field. So I'm back playing safety. That was one of the positions I trained really hard for. I felt really comfortable with. And so this ball is hanging in the air, and I'm like, I'm going to end this game right now. Like, I'm just going to pick it off. They were talking so much trash because they're on the Rutgers team, and I was like, I'm going to jump over these guys, pick this ball off, and we're going to end the game. And where we were playing at was actually a soccer field that had a nice turf. And one of the things that I didn't realize at the time was that the lighting of soccer fields and football fields are very different. On football fields, you sometimes get more horizontal lighting that's not quite shining down on the ground as much. In soccer, you think about like seeing the ground is incredibly important. You get a little bit more of an extreme angle. And as I was going to make that play, I felt that. So I go to get the ball, and all of a sudden I have this light angle down directly in my eyes, and I can't see anything. So I'm just running as fast as I can. I go to jump, I can't see anything. And at the same time, a guy that was literally my exact size and another guy coming behind me were all collapsing on the same area. So I jump up, and then I realize I can't see the ball. So I didn't really go up to protect myself. I didn't lift my arms up. I was kind of trying to figure out where I was at. And as I was in the air, the guy that was my size coming full speed from the right side, he could see, and he went up. And I don't really know because I don't have a great memory of it, but either his shoulder or his elbow just collided with my right temple, and immediately it was like a piece of like just a thunderstorm went off in my head, and it was like ding, and everything went dark. And at the same time, that other guy also couldn't really see well. He clipped my legs, and so I'm as high as I can be in the air, get knocked out mid-air, and then someone takes my legs out. So I basically flip over, hit the ground, and just whiplash the back of my head right into this like pretty hard ground. And then I just like was completely out. So I don't know how long exactly I was out, but I remember opening my eyes, and my teammates were like, yo, like we're about to win. Are you okay? Are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm good. I get up. I try to like move back to safety, and I can barely stand up. I start tripping over myself. I'm like falling. I don't have any coordination. And it was like a really weird feeling. I don't know if you guys are like big football guys, but Patrick Mahomes, when they were playing the Browns, he got tackled, right? Yeah. And you remember how weird that felt, that moment where he like tried to stand up and just started falling. That was like me. That was what I was experiencing. So, the game ended, kind of pulled out. We had won the championship. My team's taking pictures. There are photos of me from that night I don't even remember. So we, get me to the hospital to figure out what's going on. And in the moment, they're like, it's like concussion. I have had some in the past before. It's not that big of a deal. They're like, just go home, rest, kind of like isolate yourself. Don't do anything crazy. You'll be fine. So I'm like, all right. So I get home. I just go straight to bed. Not really thinking that much. Not really looking at that much. Things were kind of like really disorienting to me. So no, didn't really get a lot of a chance to assess what was going on around me. And so the next day I woke up, and it was like, all right, like, I was kind of chill today, right? It's a concussion. You just kind of take a little bit of day off, maybe take a week off of school. So I get up, and I don't have a clock around me, so I don't really know what time it is. But I wake up, I go to get in the shower. I get in the shower, and I go to grab off shampoo. And as I pick it up, I realize like it just kind of like everything in me just completely froze for a second. And I realized that like even though I felt disoriented, I thought I was kind of okay, but I like could not read a single word that was on the shampoo bottle. It was like it was probably Head and Shoulders or something. I tried to read it, and it's like I couldn't see the words at all. And so I'm looking around trying to figure out what's happening, and on a large scale I can see like I'm in the bathroom, like I can see things, and every time I tried to read I couldn't do it. It was like someone put the actual sun in my eyes when I was trying to read, like someone was just shining light. And my brain was just like not processing these words at all. So now I'm starting to panic, right? Like, as a medical student, your eyes are incredibly important, like the ability to read. And I'm like, yo, like we clearly must have missed something. Don't know what's going on. So I go, I call a doctor. It's like a little medical group that's part of Rutgers, and I like rush in, and their sports med person comes in. They're like, okay, you definitely have a concussion. This is kind of like a weird, like procedural, like it's a weird presentation of this. We haven't seen this, but like we think you're okay. Like you're probably not like, it'll be fine. Just give it a week. And they basically like sent me home, and they're like, just sit in the dark for like a whole week. Don't be around like light, and then it'll be fine. As a first year medical student, like you want to think like, oh, I know more stuff than this, but you don't really. You haven't learned anything yet. So I just kind of went with that advice, and I went home, sat in the dark, tried to do all those things, and as that was happening, like this started progressively getting worse. I started having even a harder time seeing on a bigger scale. Things looked really reflective to me. Things were really bright to me. Like any sound was just like devastating to me. When I would move, I would feel like I was going to throw up. So it just started getting kind of worse and worse. So, a week later, I'm back in the doctor's office like, yo, like what is going on? And my school is also like, what's going on? Are you coming back? Or are you not coming back? So kind of nobody knows what's going on. And I think one of the, I'm a huge fan. I obviously love the medical system. I'm part of it. One of the deficiencies I would say is that when you're in a medical institution like this, sometimes you're working with people that are still in training. So at the time I didn't realize, but my physician was actually a resident, which is awesome. Like they trained their whole life to be there, but they still hadn't seen super complex stuff yet. And so they were kind of giving me this guidance based off of like a statistical likelihood that a person has a concussion, whatever. So they're still kind of telling me like, you're fine. Just go home. And so I start to kind of like push back a little bit, and I'm like, I got to find a way to like get an appointment somewhere, get in with a neurologist that like actually has seen this stuff before. But I'm having a really hard time because I can't read, I can't use my phone at all. And then my wife at the time, so my ex-wife now, was like, she was in PT school, so she was never like, she wasn't really able to be around. So I'm basically trying to scramble, find ways to get somebody to see me to figure out what's going on. So it kind of was like a month of this, man, where it was just like I couldn't read, I could barely see, I felt sick all the time, I felt like I was going to throw up all the time. And then finally, after a month, I kind of got in with a neurologist, and they're like, why haven't they imaged you? Like, why has no one done an MRI? Like, this isn't a concussion, this is like an actual traumatic brain injury, and like we don't know how this is progressing, and we're worried about what's going to happen next. So we kind of went through the process of just figuring out what was going on, and they're like, where you have like this injury in your brain is a higher order functioning area, which is kind of like a neurologist term for like, we don't really know. Like there are areas of the brain we still don't understand yet. It's kind of like the final frontier of the body, right? There's so much stuff we know, but there are these centers in the brain that are like higher order processing centers. And mine was like damaged, and we don't know exactly how that's going to manifest. So no one's able to give me a plan, and kind of, I started to face this likelihood that like after everything I had kind of worked to get to med school, this like absolute high, like now, like it's all starting to just disappear, right? My dream of being there and finishing is all getting pulled away from me, and I'm like scrambling. I have no idea like how to get it back. So I went to talk to my school, and I was just basically like, look, here's what the doctor says. Here's what all the testing is showing. Like they said I need to take a full year off, try to do a bunch of rehab, see if I can come back. And so they were really gracious. They gave me the time off. It was very easy. They're like, you're spot safe. You can come back next year. You'll be good to go. So I start kind of trying to go through the process of what I need to do some visual rehab, which at first literally just consisted of a Post-it note on the wall that had an X on it. And I literally was just supposed to try to turn my head and look at it without throwing up. Which is crazy. So, I'm working on all of that, and then in the meantime, my body just starts like turning on me, and in ways that like we didn't expect. So all of a sudden, I started having this like heart issue, where my heart was like going out of rhythm and would like stop for a second, and I would like, it felt like everything in me, just like I'd be walking, and all of a sudden I would be frozen in time, and it's like my heart would literally like go out of rhythm and just like stop and then re-kick up. So I would like freeze, and then I'd be like, okay. So I had to go see a cardiologist, and like, we don't know why this is happening. Like, your heart seems like it should be fine. So I'm going home strapped with like this monitor to record my heart for like 2 whole weeks, and then I'm getting sent home with a vest that's supposed to shock me back to life if I just like my heart suddenly starts beating, right? So it just started to get wild, where it's like I have no idea what to expect. Like a month later, all of a sudden I had like I went into like acute kidney failure, like this like kidney injury where like I had all this pain. I went in, and they're like, your kidneys are like, you're like have this acute kidney injury. Like, did you get hit? What happened? And I was like, no, I've been sitting at home. So kind of nobody knows what is going on in my body, and I'm like scrambling trying to find some sort of solution, and I'm not getting better at all. Things are just kind of getting worse. And in the meantime, you know, when all that's happening, I'm still spending so much time just like sitting alone, right? So you're also facing like the very real mental component of this, right? Of feeling like all your dreams are getting taken away, that like your body is turning against you. You can't read. Your heart can stop at any moment. You have like this sudden kidney problem, and you're just like, I have no idea if I'm going to be alive for very long or if I'm not. And when I would talk to my doctors, they kind of told me the same thing. They're like, you know, like, sometimes you come in, you're stable, it's okay, and then you go home, and the next thing you know, like your heart is like not working. So it just became this like really crazy thing where like my body was just like panicking, and like my brain body connection were not working together, and my body was trying to respond to my brain trying to heal. So fast forwarding a little bit, I just kept doing rehab. I kept trying to do what I did need to do to feel better. It took about 9 months before I could start to like really like feel pretty comfortable reading again. I graduated a little bit from looking at a wall and moving my head to an X to maybe now there's an X and an O, and then I'll go up and down, and then there's an XO and another X, and I'd be like doing triangles. And started to feel a little bit better. And so we're getting towards the end of the year where it's time for me to basically have to go back to school. I only could take this 1 year. You can lose your spot, or you can lose your financial status where you have to start paying back all your loans. And for me, I told you I had to work so much during undergrad. Like I had to take a ton of loans out when possible to even be where I was, and I had no income. So if those loans came due, that was it for me, right? The only way for me to have paid them would have been to try to drop out, get a job while I'm in the middle of this brain issue. So I'm like, I have to go back because I don't want to lose my seat. I don't want to be in a situation where I just financially can't pay for my loans, and I can't make it back anyway. So I basically, I talked to I had like a physical therapist that specialized in brain injuries that was working with me on rehab. And she was like, I think we can try to make it back, so you can kind of keep your seat. And I'm like, I'm pretty excited, right? I never thought I was going to make it back, but also just still felt like garbage, right? Like I still felt like I couldn't see things clearly. I still felt real foggy. I still felt like things were really, kind of bright, but I didn't want to lose my spot. So I went back. I had to do a couple tests, to make sure, like, to be able to kind of stay enrolled. So I go back, and I'm pretty excited. And I get through, like I passed them, like miraculously. I didn't feel good while I was studying. I wasn't doing as good as I used to do. But I had felt okay. It was like, I might be able to make it. I'm a little sick, but I can kind of power through. So I'm starting to feel like, maybe I'm coming towards the end of this crazy situation. And like right when I had gone back, I was getting ready to take my first test, and that's when I found out that like in the meantime, while I was spending so much time trying to get better, trying to figure out what was going on with my brain, with my body, my like personal life was like completely falling apart. Like everything I had kind of worked to build, getting married, all those things, just like it was not surviving this issue at all. And so I found out, I started to realize that there was a lot going on behind the scenes that like I didn't realize, and that like all the work I was doing to try to come back to school, like even though I made it back, my life was still like gonna explode. So, I made my way back. I start trying to take tests. I start trying to stay enrolled in it, and now all of a sudden I'm facing like basically getting divorced in the middle of this. I was trying to work out more and feel like I, didn't have to live like afraid, right? And when you get an injury like that, one of the main things you see when people come back is like, how does that affect their life? Are they afraid to live? And I didn't want that. So I was like, I'm still going to kind of play some sports. It's still going to be okay. Um, and so, I'm going through this divorce. I like literally have nothing. I'm living in my brother's basement essentially. So I had worked so hard, right, to get a cool place to live. I'm married. I have like a nice house. I'm in medical school. And I kind of got there, and like that, all of a sudden, like I can't read. My life is falling apart. I have nothing. I'm in a ton of debt. I'm living in my brother's basement and over an hour away from my school, and I just have nowhere to go. I have no idea what to do. But so I'm out just trying to like hang out a little bit, play a little bit of basketball. Maybe I can like get some of this back, and sort of restart the way I had when I went to ECU, which was focusing on like getting discipline from the gym and athletics, and use that to kind of feel like I have like a little bit of something that I can hold on to keep moving forward. And I'm just like kind of playing this like really low key, not crazy game at all, and just another fluke shot. I got hit in the head again, like hard, where it just like everything went black again. And I know, like, hearing this story, it sounds really stupid of me to even be playing, right? Like, what are you doing playing basketball? But I just, like, things were getting so dark with where I was at in life, with feeling like I was never going to be back to where I had been. And, like, not having a place that was, like, my own home, not having, this relationship that I had spent so much time investing in, that I just, like, I was like, I don't want to live afraid. I want to be able to do something I love. So that second hit, like, started to change kind of everything for the worst. And that kind of led me to what I definitely think is like the absolute darkest moment of my entire life, where going through the divorce, going through this second hit, where now it made my eyes even worse. Like, I'm having trouble reading again. I'm gonna have to take more time off school, and just things are getting so bad that like I was in a position where like my family was literally like on watch for me to like basically end my life, because like that was kind of my thought, right? Like, it sounds really extreme. And it's almost interesting because I had lived my whole life feeling like, all right, somebody that commits suicide when I was younger and immature is like really selfish to me. I was like, I have no tolerance for this. This is ridiculous. And now all of a sudden I find myself in this moment where I'm like, I put my whole soul on the line to be here. And with the situation completely out of my control, I just lost everything that I had spent like 10 years trying to build. I have nothing. I have nowhere to go. I'm not going to make it back to school at this point. My neurologist is telling me like that second hit was it for you. Like, I don't see how you're coming back. And so to me, I was like, I worked so hard to be in a place that I didn't belong, to build this life that was really never meant for me, and now I have nothing from it. So it's like, there's no purpose in me even being here. And so I had to sit in that for a while, right? With my family being afraid of where I was going to at, with me having no ambition, no goal, because there was really nothing for me to do. Like, I didn't know how to come back, and again, the only way that I was trying to basically push myself to do anything was just I would still go to the gym. So one day, man, I was at the gym. I was sitting in the parking lot, and I had kind of battled back and forth about like how, like, do I live like this forever? Do I just end it? What do I do? Where do I go? And I started thinking about something I hadn't thought about in really a long time, which was my dad. So, we talked about this a little bit in the first one, but I didn't go too into it because I knew it was going to kind of come up in the second part. But, when I was like 10, 11 years old or something, he got sick with lymphoma. He got misdiagnosed. He got treated for the wrong cancer for like 3 years. His body was shutting down. Like, he knew that he was going to die. And every time we saw him still, like, I would get to like hang out with him. He would make this sound like he didn't really do what I had been doing, right? Like, he didn't just like kind of give up, call it quits. He just kept showing up for his family, kept showing up for my mom, for his wife, for his kids, in this way that I didn't think about any moment where I was like, wow, like, this man just like purely gave up. So I started to think about that a lot. Like, how did he do that? Like, how do you know that you're going to die? Know that your life is over. All the things that you worked for, all your dreams are never coming true. How do you go from that spot and still have so much hope, right? And still bring so much light to the people around you. And how could I sit there, like, still being alive for all intents and purposes, right? Like, maybe I won't be what I thought I was going to be. Maybe I don't have the life that I had dreamed of, that I worked so hard for, but like, still having an opportunity to do something. How do I take that and stay in this really dark place and not try to find a way out of it? So it started to really like kind of sink into my brain a little bit. And, people around me were like trying to be as helpful as they could and be like, don't give up, like don't stop, don't quit. Like you got to finish this, you got to find a way back. And it sounds awesome, man. In theory, it sounds great. Like just never giving up, like being relentless, and you can listen to motivational speakers that are like, you just got to be an animal, you got to want it more than everyone else. But when you're in a position where like no matter how bad I wanted something, I couldn't make myself see better, right? I couldn't make things stop moving around me. Like I would be looking at an object and it would be like things around it were just moving, and I would literally duck sometimes because I thought something was going to hit me and there was nothing there. So I didn't know like really how to do that. Like how do you go like when when I was at ECU and I had this big obstacle, it was like I could do something if I wanted to, right? Like I could grind harder, I could wake up earlier. I had this, I had the thing on my ceiling that said whatever it takes. Like I could show up and I could do it. But now I'm in a position where I'm like, I don't have anything left. I felt like I had given it all, and I lost it all. So I didn't really know where to go with that. So I had to kind of sort of figure that out. So this kind of when I started thinking about like this concept, this business that we have, this FTR, the nonprofit, is I started thinking about it, and it was like like everyone's telling me to kind of keep going, to do like what my dad had done, to finish, to never give up, and I just didn't have any energy to do that. And I started thinking about this concept of like, all right, if this was like a race, right? Because people always used to tell me that my dad finished his race, right? And he did that by always having hope for the future, by always putting other people first. And so I've started to think about this race, and it's like if I'm in this race to the finish, right, and I'm getting absolutely destroyed, how could I still finish if I don't feel like I could run there, if I didn't feel like I could walk there, jog, if I didn't feel like I could even move? And I was like, man, like what if like instead of trying to be like a hero, right, and just like grind and push through, like I just did something. I just literally crawled my way there. I just found some way to try and get back to whatever I could possibly, contribute to the rest of the world. And it kind of hit me really hard where I realized, like, again, I had said all of the right things. I had talked about making an impact in my med school interviews, but a lot of it had really just been for me about finishing this really cool story, right? This kid that was going nowhere that now becomes super successful. And I started to think about, like, yo, what if I actually just stopped thinking about me? What if my purpose for this was beyond that, was just to try to invest in other people, to try to use everything I've now gone through to actually do good, not to just say it, not just say I want to help like populations that don't have any money and do these things that, I got to lean into really heavy to get into med school, but to actually like sacrifice of myself to do that. And that was kind of a turning point for me where I was like, I'm going to find a way back. Right now, I don't have that gun mentality of just like grinding through, but I'm going to figure out a way to get back. So I started seeing like multiple neurologists. I saw 5 of them. 3 of them were like, yeah, I don't think this is going to work out for you. One of them was like, maybe, but you'll be really sick the whole time. And then one of them was like, I think that we can do this. I think if you are willing to put in the time to just keep showing up, to doing rehab that's going to be harder than what you did before, I think that we can get you back and it's going to be okay. So man, that sparked like that hope, right? That thing that I saw in my dad all the time where I was like, yo, like there's a way out of this. And this time when I come back, I'm not coming back as like some cocky dude that overcame everything and is just the man that can dominate. I'm going to come back and I'm going to do everything I can to like use my story to show other people that like not just saying like you can get through anything, you can overcome everything, but like we're going to do it and we're going to do it together. And when you can't walk, I'm going to pull you. And if I'm not there, you're going to learn to crawl towards the end. So I just started showing up, man. I got more rehab schedule. I started showing up. We were back to looking at the dang X, moving my head to the sound of a metronome. All of a sudden, they start incorporating some colors in. Then I start looking at things while I'm walking on a treadmill. I start watching videos of these black and white lines moving. I'm basically retraining my brain all over again to function with a totally new view of the world. Because now, the way I had seen the world before was different, right? My brain was never going to process visual information the same. So now I'm retraining it like from the starting point to see things again, to focus on things. And so like 5 days a week, man, I would be there and just keep showing up and we would do this work and I would get so sick, I would throw up. and I would be trying to study at home. Same thing. I'd have to take a break, go home, throw up. But I was like, this is going to be worth it, because now it's not going to be worth it because I'm going to prove, the Whoville guy wrong. It's not going to be worth it because people told me I was going to end up homeless, or because, my stepdad thought I should go to vocational school because I couldn't handle curriculum. It's going to be worth it because I'm going to be able to use this somehow to try and maybe save a life, to change somebody's life. And so being able to hold on to that was like that hope that I needed to keep going, right? We still didn't know where it was going to go, man. But it just kept progressing. And next thing I know, I'm standing on a balance ball, and they're throwing colored objects, and I'm able to call the color out and grab it. And it just keeps progressing, and my vision starts coming back. It starts getting sharper, and I start being able to focus. And my studying, I'm not throwing up as much anymore. So in January of 2020, right before COVID started, I was able to go back to school. And unlike the first time where I went back and I was barely skating by and I felt ill and I wasn't going to be able to live up to the person that I wanted to be and my life was falling apart, now I'm going back and I showed up and I started doing better than I had done the first time, because now my drive wasn't negative motivation, right? It wasn't like, I'm coming for everything you said I couldn't have, I'm going to prove you wrong. It was like, I genuinely understand now, like, the joy of this process of being able to give everything you have to get somewhere, because I love it, because I want to use this for something. I don't want to just say it, I want to actually do it. And so being able to come back in January of 2020 and just I started getting like 99s, hundreds again. It was just wild, and I didn't feel the same at all. I still couldn't see things. Things are so bright to me still, even in this room. Like, things look so bright, and the world does not look the same, but it's almost like, it almost looks better to me, because it made me slow down and focus on, like, what do I really need to be seeing in this moment? Like, when I'm talking to a patient, what do I really need to be able to assess? And so, that kind of leads me up to where I am now. I took my first boards exam. I did very well. It opened up possibility for me to do anything I want as a doctor in my future. I could go anywhere that I want. I could do anything I want. And so being able to be in this place kind of all stemmed from that dark spot where I was sitting in the parking lot of my gym, unsure of where to go, of what my life was even going to become. And that moment also led me to be able to do, one of the things that I'm most passionate about, right? Like, we're all right now wearing FTR shirts, right? We've talked about this finish the race concept, and so through that pain of being at an actual rock bottom, not just like I failed out of school, and being at actual rock bottom where you're like, my life doesn't mean anything, I lost everything. And climbing back from that, I was able to kind of work with my brother to build FTR. So we had this concept of building this nonprofit organization where we would sell some emblem of what we stood for, of like hope, of perseverance, of resilience, that we could give other people that are in moments similar to what I had been in, and let them have something they could hold on to, that, like, if no one's around to tell you, like, you could do it, like, you just look down and be like, oh, I remember like the purpose of what I'm wearing, of what I'm doing, and I'll find a way to make it. I just have to show up. So we were able to start this nonprofit apparel company based on some of these moments and some of the things that we learned, and use all of the money that we make to give back to people around us. We have 5 organizations that we support. So, through all of this kind of nightmare situation, it's like I felt like I was able to really grow into, who I wanted to be as a man, the impact that I wanted to have on the world. And to kind of realize that, like, if you really sacrificing of yourself is not just staying up all night studying to be the best. It's putting yourself in a position where you're giving up to make other people around you better, and that's how we kind of change lives. That's how we change the world. So that kind of leads me up to where I am now.
It's unbelievable. And I mentioned after the first round that you did the interview, at the end of it, I said, the story didn't even really start yet. You get through that whole entire journey that you've been through, and people are going to listen to episode 1 and say, wow, I can't believe this guy was able to persevere. And that wasn't even the tip of the iceberg for you. That was it really was just the beginning of the shit that you were about to encounter in your life. So there's so much there. I wanted, and I appreciate you being able to tell that story in such a succinct yet elaborate way. You went through a long period of time, but you were able to tie up all the loose ends. So I appreciate the way you were able to weave us through that journey that you went on. I want to go back to the injury now. Having had concussions myself, having, my son has had a concussion or two. As a former principal, I dealt with kids that have gone through that experience. And in the moment after, the concussion, when you say there were all these things that happened, that you were alert and talking to people, but you have no memory of those things that were going on. How long was that period of time that you can say, I remember going up for the ball, seeing the lights? What's the next thing that you actually remember as you recall the event?
Yeah, honestly, the next thing I remember was I was sitting on my couch at home eating a giant meal of McDonald's chicken nuggets, McNuggets. I was literally just sitting on the couch, dipping them in sauce, and it's like I almost feel like I couldn't even taste it. I don't really know like what sensation I was experiencing, but I just remember being like, why I got nuggets?
Where did I get some nuggets?
What's your sauce? What's your go-to?
So I'm honestly like kind of a big honey mustard guy.
Okay.
I've never been a huge barbecue fan. I don't know what it is, but I haven't really hit that barbecue. And I think my sauce will change depending on where I'm at. But from McDonald's, I usually go honey mustard.
So funny, we could sidetrack a little bit. When Joel like part-time worked at Soulberry for a little bit, the gym that I was working at, and during this time frame. When was that in the story? That was like
the dark moment, right? So when I came to work in the same place that you were working, so I'm sure people know you were running a gym basically, and my brother was one of the owners of the companies, and he kind of was trying to give me help basically. Because when I was not able to go back to school, when I'm living in the downstairs of my brother's house, I also found out that we were in more debt than I thought, that there were credit cards that I didn't know were had things put on them the way that they did, and so I'm these are all coming due, and it's not only am I visually going to get back to school, it's if I default on these, I won't get school loans if you don't pay these things. So I had to find a way to pay them. So Brian's I'm gonna find something I can help here. So that was that, man. I know I would show up and I would try to be all great, but I don't know if you remember how much water I would drink at those things. But that's because I was going into this kidney failure issue, so I'm trying to train these kids, and I'm just drinking literally as much water as possible, try to clean my body out and keep my kidneys as healthy as possible. So it was right in that time where I had realized that I was starting to have these major visual issues again, and I was having still a bunch of body issues, and I just was at the bottom of I have no idea where to go from here, and that was kind of just an opportunity that I was given to try to do literally something.
I didn't even realize the severity of what you've been through or what you were going through when you were there. I just thought you'd just some fucking cocky assholes run around bang weights around and shit, but it's amazing. And I remember there was one time I walked in, and I was in there already, and I see you walk in, and I'm like, God, these fucking kids, man, I can't get over it. They literally had the audacity to bring McDonald's into the gym and leave it in here overnight. I'm so fucking pissed off, and I just look at him, and he's got a smirk on his face. He's like, yeah, dude, that was me. I'm sorry. I was I was really fucking hungry, and I was oh, God damn it. I was I was about to lay in. I was about to send an all-school email about fucking the importance of not eating McDonald's, and especially
amazing.
Yeah. So
the cool thing is about where we've come in Building Men is we have all these great resources at our fingertips. We're actually able. You said you didn't remember that time from the injury until you're eating the chicken nuggets. We were actually able to go back and pull some audio of a conversation that you had during that time. I actually have a quick audio clip that I think the audience will enjoy about a conversation that you had with your friend Jacob.
Jacob, put your clothes on. Now this may seem strange, really strange, but stranger things happen every day.
Do you remember that conversation?
Wow, I can't believe that.
Do you have?
Can you walk us through that, or is that a faded memory? Do you not?
Why did Jacob have his clothes off?
And were your clothes off? Yeah.
I think it has something to do with hypothermia. If I remember correctly, it was very cold. We were just trying to save one another.
As many organs as you could harvest and hold on to.
I already had this brain issue and the heart issue and the kidney issue. It's we really had to combine warmth, I think, if I was guessing. I don't know.
That's so good.
So, it was part. I was how do I weave that into this?
That was perfect.
With this unbelievable story, I was how do I get, Taylor Lautner, am I saying that correctly, into whereas he's getting put his clothes back on.
Yeah.
So the the reason why I was asking that question, I'm trying to figure out like the time span that happens when you don't recall something that occurs, conversations that you're having. I remember I had a concussion when I was in like 7th grade, and it was a chicken fight in someone's basement, and I was on someone's shoulders, and I fell and hit my head on a concrete floor, and I was out. And I just remember when I finally came to, they're like, "You've been asking us the same thing for the last like 5 hours," and I have no recollection of that time that passed.
Wow.
And I was like, I wonder what it was like when you have such a significant injury. So you had all these pictures taken afterwards, and then finally you're at home, and that was the first thing that you remember. You said that you were misdiagnosed, or they didn't recognize the severity of it. If you would have received the proper treatment at that time, like now with your expertise in the medical field, could there have been anything different in the trajectory of your care? Like, could that have been a little bit different if you received the proper diagnosis immediately there?
So I think, to be honest, I think that the trajectory would have been similar, but I think, some of the process, the extremities may have been a little bit better. I think that, I was still trying to push myself to get back. And I think that because they're like, oh, you'll be okay, just do some light studying. But I can't even read, so I'm trying to look at stuff, and I was basically fatiguing my brain more. As far as the damage that was done, I think that was already done. I think it could have just gone a long way for the mental aspect of understanding what's going on. I think that one of the things you see, and I even see it today, is someone like us comes in, and if it's a brain issue and you're not completely knocked out, and it's visual as much as mine is that you look healthy, right? You come in, you look fine.
Yeah.
My blood pressure's okay. Everything seems okay. So it's just I've experienced concussions. I've seen this a million times. Just go home, you're fine. So I think the hardest part was really just having to push so hard to get someone to actually hear me, and then to be like, oh wait, hold on, this is bad. This is not you're not okay. This is not a good thing, and we got to figure out there were times where I remember I was calling my brother, and he literally just stopped believing in it anymore, because I had gotten told so many different times I was gonna die at some point in the near future, that he was like, I don't even believe this. You've heard this literally 7 times already. And that's just what I kept hearing, because people didn't know. They're like, is this degenerative? Is it going to get worse? So, but yeah, I mean, I don't think that it really would have made as big of a difference in my trajectory, but I do think it would have helped me to have a better understanding, of what was going on.
And in that moment, so after you go through the initial diagnosis before that second injury playing basketball, the period of time that goes by where you're like, okay, I need to do this rehab. You're focusing on getting back into school, and in that time, you're hyper focused on what you need to do, what's in front of you, the next steps. That was always a thing for you. All right, if I can just get here, I can just get here. But at the meantime, there's all these other things that are going on in your life, right? Especially a relationship that now takes the back seat. What do you think was the most challenging part, through that time? As you're sitting in, fast forward to you're sitting in your car, and you said, I don't even know why I'm fucking here anymore. Was it the physical things that you were going through, with the injury? Was it the mental aspect of okay, I'm missing school, and how am I going to get back into it? Was it the emotional or the relationship thing, my life is falling apart here? Or is it this spiritual thing, what is it all about? Why am I here? In Building Men, we say mental, spiritual, emotional, physical, all those things working together. Everything
you lost all of those in that moment there.
Yeah. I think that, first of all, that's an awesome question, and I think it gives a great topic to talk about. I think, to be honest, I think that there was a spiritual component. I think the relationship part was very heavy. I think that facing the fact that this dream of mine, this story that I thought was going to be so cool, was just not, because to me it wasn't worth it if it all meant nothing, if I couldn't finish. I think the spiritual part of when the first injury happened, I had leaned really heavy. So I grew up a pretty religious household. Parents are both Christian. It was very important to them. Never really as important to me, but I had the experience there, and so I remember that there were times where I realized what was happening in my life, with my eyes, and I was trying to use that to grow. And I would be I remember I would pray. I'd be like, God, just show me what I'm supposed to get out of this. There's something here for me. It's gonna work. It's gonna work out. There's something here for me, right? So like, make sure that I know how to get this, and then seeing that like I wasn't getting it. Things were just getting worse. And I remember one night, dude, like I was sitting in my like little office room, and I was about to take my first test from coming back. I'm sitting in my office, and I had realized that like my marriage was over. Like I realized what was kind of happening. I realized like this was not gonna. And I remember praying, dude. I was like, God, like just not this. Like I already lost everything. Like, and it's not like a pity party, man. Like I know like stuff happens to people, but I was just like, I remember just like talking to God and being like, God, I already lost everything, right? I'm never gonna be the man that I thought I was gonna be. I'm never gonna be the same. And I was like, just not this though. Like not I like not this, like anything but this. And sure enough, it just kept going. And so I remember the spirit having to face the spiritual aspect of like literally being in a position where I felt like I was calling out and just like begging like God or whatever, you know, man, just to like don't take one more thing. Just let me like have something so I can come back and facing the reality of like, you know, that's not always how things work. Like you can grind as hard as you can work as hard as you can. Sometimes things are going to be out of your control. And it's not to say that I didn't play any role in things going bad, right? I was very focused on recovery. I wasn't doing a great job as a husband. I already know that. But I think the spiritual aspect of being like, what, this is for nothing. Like my whole life is literally for nothing. My mom put like her name on my loans. They could take her house, and I'm never going to be like all of the investment people put in me, all the sacrifices people made to help me get there is literally for nothing. And now like I'm here and there's nowhere for me to go, and people are telling me there's nowhere to go. So I think that spiritual aspect of, you know, as far as like, you know, FTR is concerned, I'm the huge hope portion, right? We have a whole line of clothes. Yeah, sure, you're wearing one of the shirts right now. It's the hope line. And I am too. And you know, it's that was the big thing for me, to feel like you lost hope. To me, is the darkest place a human being can be, right? Because you can't see forward anymore. And we talked about this in the first part, right? Is like, you know, when someone told me I couldn't get in med school, I didn't care because I could see it, right? Like you can't tell me I'm not going. I literally can see myself walking in the doors. And I think what was so hard about the spiritual component of that time is with no hope, I couldn't see it anymore, man. Like I remember I was talking to my wife about this on our drive to North Carolina. We went on vacation a couple weeks ago, and like I'm just not a big crier, dude. I started tearing up even talking about like remembering what it felt like to not be able to see it. I couldn't see myself coming back. I couldn't see things turning around, and there was literally no hope there. So I think that was the hardest. And I think, you know, even when I drive today, I have this piece of metal that's around my steering wheel, and it says "There is hope." It was something my mom actually gave me in that time, and I just like, you know, that's why I kind of love these reminders. Like, even though sometimes they seem cheesy, like to wear a shirt that says hope, or to have a thing on your steering wheel that says there's hope. But like after facing a time where you just don't believe it, to have some little reminder that like, nah, man, there is hope out there, can go such a long way in helping you get back from that spot you're in. So I would say probably the spiritual component was really hard.
And that I was thinking about, like when you were saying you were looking and like to God for answers and asking questions and things like that, and it was almost like you haven't learned enough yet, right? Because if you think about the story, it's like all of that needed to happen in order for you to understand your true purpose. Like I'm sure at this point it was, you know, obviously the hardest thing you've ever been through, but like looking where you came to, I'm sure you wouldn't change things because of how much it opened up your eyes to everything around you. And it's like, maybe you didn't learn the lesson yet, and that's why all the shit also needed to go wrong, and everything else needed to happen, and it all really needed to crumble on you for you to be like, shit, this is why I'm here. You know, it's not to just prove people wrong, it's to give them hope. It's to show them that I'm here to help, and I'm here to get them through it. You know, I'm that proof that this is possible.
Yeah, man. I think that's one of the number one questions I actually get. You know, when I'm just talking to different people, even like I did like a little like mock interview at my school, you know, because residency's coming up, and it's just like, would you change it? Like, be really honest, be completely honest. Like, would you change it? And you know, that puts you in a really hard spot, because at your core, like selfishness and self-preservation, you're like, would I change it? Like, would I want to feel as great as I used to feel, where I feel like I could see the world a certain way, and I was just like, you know, dominating the field that I was in. It seems really appealing, but when you start to think about it, it's like, would I change it? I wouldn't, because like what you said was like that hit the nail on the head, is, and it's something I talk about all the time, is the difference between a transient impact and a generational impact, right? And it's like, if I changed it, that would have a temporary impact, right? I would have been great again. I would have been this like rock star that overcame everything and did it himself and pushed and grinded, and I could be like a YouTube speaker, man, and just be like, just wake up at 3, and not, there's nothing wrong with that, but
Right.
like I'm saying, like I could push that, and that would make a great temporary impact. But if I change that, like what about my generational impact? What about the legacy that I want to leave as a human being, following up the legacy that my dad left me? So if I change that, I would give that up, because as you said, I wouldn't have learned that, like, these moments weren't an example of me crushing it, right? I was getting my ass kicked. It was an example of like having this bigger purpose, having hope, having other people give you hope, and when you can't even crawl, letting someone pull you, right? My brother did that for me, dude. Like, he literally saved my entire life, like putting his own life in peril to like have his brother move in with him. Like, that's not an easy thing for a family to have. Like, and like, so now when people are like, this is so incredible, how'd you do it? I'll be like, I didn't do it. Like, I did some of it, but I learned the value of what you can be if you're willing to really sacrifice of yourself, like my brother did, and make your life hard to give somebody a shot. And that's like what it's all about for me now.
I think about just having the courage and being vulnerable enough to go through your story and say, when I came back from it the first time, it was about you. It was about you proving to yourself, to the world. It was this. There was a level of extrinsic motivation. You wanted to look a certain way. You have the emblem on your chest, like, this is me. I'm fucking Superman. I was able to do it. And then being in the moment where you had to kind of get to that bottom point, where there were probably so many times where you thought you were at that low and you never really got to the bottom point. For you to realize it's for you to climb out, it needs to be about others and serving others and the world around you rather than about you. That's a deep journey that you went on there, and I just appreciate your willingness to even verbalize that. It's got to be a tough thing to come to that realization and to share that story with everyone else.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I think it's a hard thing to face, right?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to look in the mirror and be like, yo, I'm so selfish, right? All the things I've gone through, and this is what I come out with it. This is what I've come out learning. And I had to do that, man. I had to be accountable for, what I was doing, who I was being, who I was coming out of this as. And instead of living my life as like, this is going to be a cool movie, it's like, what if other people get cool movies? And it's literally just because, like, we got a chance to chat. So, like, when I think about who I want to impact, it's not somebody that still has a push left, right? That can give extra, that can grind, that can work all day. I want to talk to the person that like has nothing left, and it's like, I literally don't know where to go. And like that's the type of person I want to be able to talk to, because I so clearly remember that. And to be able to face like a real honest conversation with yourself about like, this is where I'm going. And I remember talking to my brother, I was like, dude, who am I? Like, this is who I'm gonna be. Like, I'm gonna be this guy. Like, this is like, that's not who I thought I was gonna be. And then it starts to open up the conversation of like, wait, why aren't you who you thought you were gonna be? Okay, so like, how do you become that person? Right. And you can start moving from there.
It's the ultimate story of perseverance. This whole entire thing, and perseverance with a significant mind shift in the middle of the story. The reason for the motivation behind the perseverance changed halfway through your story, and it really is remarkable where how you wove that from part 1 to part 2 of this story. Yeah. It's really an amazing journey that you've been on, and I want to just give you an opportunity to talk to us a little bit more about Finish the Race.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's something that's near and dear to our hearts, as we're able to partner with Finish the Race, and initially we were like, we'd love to be able to get our Building Men logo and brand out there. But again, it didn't happen for a reason. It didn't happen because we needed to meet you guys, to connect with you guys, because your mission totally aligns with what we're about here. So talk to us a little bit more about how can we Finish the Race? What is it about? What are you doing with Finish the Race? What is your mission moving forward?
Yeah, or like the future too, maybe where you see it going.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we kind of talked a little about the concept of how it got started. It was just me trying to find a way to make to put action into my words, right? So I now have said, like, I had this life-changing experience. I want to give back, and now how can I do that? And I kind of looked into a bunch of things, but it wasn't really where I was passionate about, because, it wasn't that concept that I wanted to really lean into, like giving people an opportunity to like give them hope, show them what perseverance looks like, but also let them invest in the world around them so that we're constantly bringing other people with us, right? We're not just changing the perspective or helping someone through it by the shirt they're wearing. They're then using their own money, this emblem that they're wearing, to give themselves hope to also bring other organizations up. So that's what we're about. So what we're doing is, I kind of summarize it. I like to reference like some motivational speakers I've listened to in my time. But I was talking to somebody at my school, and they were like, all right, like explain this to me, like give me a real deal, like, and they were really into like listening to motivational speakers. They're like, love David Goggins, who's like just he's a crazy man. I mean honestly, there were times where I liked him. Like, there's a place for him. I love what he's about. But so I was talking to him, I was like, like if I were to summarize FTR in a way that relates to you, and thinking about speakers, I would think about Will Smith on a treadmill, where I don't know if you're familiar, but he has this thing where he's like, I will die before I get off the treadmill. You will not beat me. And I was like, that's what I want FTR to be. But it's not that I'm going to die before I get off the treadmill because you won't beat me. It's that I'm not getting off the treadmill until you've gotten where you want to be too. So I'm not stopping before you, because I'm coming with you. And we're doing this together, and that's what we want to do with FTR, is use our gear, our message, as someone to really run with other people, to not be about me being better than you or me being able to persevere harder than you, to be about like, yo, I'm with you, like I'm coming with you. I'm not stopping until you get where you need to be either, because we're not competing. We're here to be great together, because you promised yourself you were going to be great just the same way I promised myself I was going to be great. And so FTR is just an opportunity for us to stand on that message, to put these emblems on our chest, and to send free shirts to people that are in these dark moments, and to use all of our money to reinvest in bringing other people around us up. So our future, man, I remember when you reached out to me, I had talked to a bunch of people at random times. I mean, even as Building Men, you've probably had random people reach out to you on Instagram, and you look at it, and you kind of look at what they're about, and you're just like, I don't know. But when I listen to your guys' stuff, right, and I know Anthony, we've like dicked around a little bit, like when we work together, but I got moments where I got to see like a little bit deeper dive into what he is, right, and then I started listening to you talk, and I was like, these are dudes that have the mindset of wanting to make a generational impact, right? That's what they're investing in, just like we do. So, our future is to keep aligning with people like you guys that want to make this generational impact, to grow and expand our reach. And as we do that, we're going to start investing more in the type of products that we have, like making them more accessible, maybe changing up our supplier a little bit, where we can get things to people faster when they're in need, and kind of go from there. And so, our goal is to just keep growing, whether it's slow or whether it's fast, whether we explode overnight and we have 1 million people shopping, or we have 3, like, doesn't matter, because like we're never going away. Like this mission is something that's going to be here, for as long as I'm alive. I'm going to keep it going, to just, if you can impact one person, you could change literally everything. So our future is to just keep investing in, helping other people on their journey, keep showing them what they can do with their purchase, with the gear that they're wearing, and hopefully to get people to just like start sending other people shirts, man. I think we've had a couple people like text me or DM me on Instagram like, hey, I just want to send this person something. And, sometimes we're able to do it ourselves, like for free, because we have a little bit of our, money that was given to us to do that. And sometimes we can't. They're like, oh no, I'm going to pay for it. I just want to send them something. So
it's amazing that you're able to go about doing that, and to finish the race. Your mission, tell us where, it's a nonprofit, tell us where the proceeds are going.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we, this is where I always have to give a shout out to my brother for this, because, when I was sitting in the parking lot and I had the idea for Finish the Race, I was drawing the worst designs ever on a notepad. I didn't know where to go. I was going to do one mass order with like all my friends or whatever that wanted to participate, and would just donate it somewhere. And he kind of like, he has his business mind, and he was like, what if like you made this like an actual thing? Like, I love the idea. I want to be on board. So he registered us as an official nonprofit. And then we started to look at like, okay, like what do we do with our money? Like we could come up with our own foundation or something that people could give to, and that would be cool. But I was like, being in finishing medical school, and like Brian having his career, is like, is that really our best thing, or can we use our ability, in our finances as a nonprofit to help these other organizations? So we started thinking about, like, what if we were a nonprofit that instead of starting our own foundation, we started investing in these other well-established programs, or even programs that aren't well-established, and brought them along with us, right? That's the whole concept of what we're going for. So we picked 5. Some of them are personal to me, and then some of them is just something that we really want to kind of support and believe in. So we picked the Lymphoma Research Society. I picked them. They're not the biggest nonprofit for like lymphoma leukemia. That's like the Lymphoma Leukemia Society, but we picked them because 100% of their proceeds go to just research to curing leukemia and lymphoma. And I think that that's like something that's important to fund, because that's a way that you can literally eradicate a disease. And I like their message. I like what they stand for. Their Instagram's awesome. We also support the Brain Trauma Foundation. That one obviously is very personal to me. They put a lot of research in helping people like me recover and understanding things like my injury, where like one person tells me I'm never coming back to school, and then another person's like, I think you can do it, but it's going to suck. And now I'm back like doing better than ever. So to be able to get more research and more understanding so that people don't have to hear that their life is over if it's not. And then we support the Special Olympics. I think that's something that's really cool because, I love athletics. And you want to hear stories of perseverance, is like talk to some of those athletes. So they were, really important group. We also support the Equal Justice Society. I think that I had a really big awakening, in 2020. There's obviously a lot going on in the world. I'm sure you guys are familiar, after the George Floyd situation, and people feel one way or another, like that's their thing. But I think I had my eyes open because, I grew up like I'm super white. And I always like was frustrated when people would talk about like privilege or whatever, because like my life sucked, man. Like, but being married to my wife, she's 50% Puerto Rican, 50% Egyptian. She kind of got to talk to me a lot about like some of the differences that there might be. And I had this like awakening of like, yo, man, like there are groups of people that need our help like across the board, and when we want to make sure we're able to give people opportunity to support like any population that needs our help. And so I love the Equal Justice Society because they're putting a lot of money in making sure that people just aren't going to jail for the wrong reason, right? You hear stories about someone that was incarcerated for 40 years and then they find out they didn't have anything to do with it. So that's one. And then the last one is called Seeds of Hope. It's actually a church-based ministry out of Camden, and they basically are like clothing homeless, and they have like an embattered women's shelter for like women that were in sex slavery or have drug addiction that are trying to get out, making sure that they have clothes and food, and they do like breakfast all the time. So it's like a really good organization as far as like again, they're reaching a population that needs help, and so we want to be able to help them too.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
I love that.
So Joel, any final words here for us?
Yeah, man. I guess.
The whole Twilight.
Wait, I didn't hear it, Joel.
I read the whole Twilight series.
Okay, we get it.
I read the whole Twilight series.
It's enough. It's enough.
I did read the whole Twilight series. That's true.
Right.
That's true. Dude, I remember I was watching the final like movie or whatever. I guess it was the first part of the last one in the movie theater, because that's how I roll. And they did like this scene that was like a dream, and I was like, "That's not what happened." And then all of a sudden they like backtracked, and I was like, "All right." And then I realized maybe I should like go like
Pausing
lift
a
some
scene.
weights or
Yeah.
something.
Do something to counteract what you just did. Yeah. But I love the idea of that you being like one person being successful doesn't mean someone else, or you winning doesn't mean someone else needs to lose.
Yeah.
And I think that that's such a cool message that you have there. It's like we can all uplift each other. We can all win together. Mm-hmm. If I'm going up, you're coming with me. You know what I mean? If you're down there, then I'm going to help pull you up. Like you're there to be that support for everyone else. And I think that that's great.
So tell us where we can Finish the Race.
All right, so you can find the Finish the Race on our Instagram is the easy way. So it's FTR Apparel Inc. or not at anywhere because it's Instagram. FTR Apparel Inc. We're an official nonprofit, so we're an incorporation, so we kind of put that in our tag. You can also email us at ftrapparelinc@gmail.com. You can always reach out to me personally, Joel.Glotfelty on Instagram. And then my email is joel.glotfelty@gmail.com. So it's, any way that you want to get in touch, like definitely reach out. And again, it doesn't have to be like even anything cool. You don't even have to buy anything. If you just need to like tell your story, or you need someone, or somebody that just needs like help or might benefit from getting a shirt, reach out and we'll see if we can send them something.
Perfect. Anthony, any last words?
Yeah, I wanted to ask Joel who he would like to, if he was going to go out to eat with one famous person,
Right.
who would it be?
I think I have that here.
Taylor Lautner. Real name, Jacob Black is his name in the books. I read them all.
Like, how much time do you guys spend sitting down talking about?
Too much time.
That's fantastic, Joel. I love that. That's great. Mine probably wouldn't be that, but you know what? We all have our own opinions. That's great. But no, that was awesome, and thank you, Joel. We really appreciate it, dude. That was a great message. That was a great story. Again, we had to break it up into 2 parts because your story is so friggin' ridiculous. That was powerful. That was, again, humbling. Like, I can't even tell you the emotions that I felt throughout that whole thing, this roller coaster ride. But we really appreciate it. That was awesome.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you guys having me on here. It was really great.
Absolutely. And so just to close out the episode, find Building Men, building.men on Instagram. Buildingmencoach@gmail is where you can email us. If you found any value from listening to this podcast, if you could do us a favor and rate and review the podcast, it goes a long way for getting our message out there. And now that we're partnered with Finish the Race, every post that we put out, we'll tag Finish the Race in. And we'll continue to promote their message. But if you can share this with anybody that you think might get value from these episodes on Building Men and rate and review it, it really goes a long way in helping push our message forward. Go a step further than you thought you can go. Thank you so much, Finish the Race, Joel Glotfelty. We're going to have his brother Brian on at some point in the future, so we'll hear it from a different perspective of the brother having the brother in the basement. We've both been in that situation.
Oh, yeah.
So we thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on Building Men.